Hello, beautiful people. This is Chris Maddox from the Wild Woman Project, and I'm speaking to you today because I always speak to you at new moon time, and the new moon is upon us. The new moon in Gemini arrives on Saturday, June 4th, and I'm pretty gleeful today because it is the very nature of this new moon to have a sense of wonder and a sense of delight. So, I want to say a couple of things before we sort of dive into our theme today, which is if you're new to the Wild Woman Project, you're going to notice right off of the bat that we make a really big deal about new moon time. It is the beginning of the cycle, and we actually watch the cycle and feel the entire moon cycle from the new moon to the waxing moon as we're seeing more and more light each and every day until we get into a culmination point, a point of light, full moon. And then there's a waning process after that, and then slither by slither, the moon, disappears back into the sky. And one of the many reasons that we are really with the moon cycle and careful about being attentive to the moon cycle is because it is a beautiful way to mark time that is really honoring of the feminine and really honoring of all of parts of the creative process of life. The moon cycle, just like the seasons, just like a day, mirrors for us sort of this process of in the example of the moon cycle, having this moment of quiet, of retreat. That's new moon time, where if you look up at the sky, you're going to see darkness on the new moon day. And then it's part of the creative process, just like a seed in the ground almost, to begin to rise and build. We have an idea, we have an intention, we have a beginning, we start to have a project, and we nurture it and to grow and to build, and eventually it builds to a certain point. And just like a plant needs pruning, I'm mixing metaphors here, I hope you don't mind. You have to prune, you have to let things go. And the moon teaches us that wane is beautiful too, that's part of the process. So the moon cycle is this gorgeous way of tracking time and being with the unfolding of our lives in a meaningful way that's connected to the moon, this beautiful symbol and nature of the feminine and of the creative process. So that's why we make such a big deal. One of the many reasons we make such a big deal. So we have the opportunity at new moon time to be with ourselves, to be with our inner depths, to check in, to create those intentions, to plant those seeds, and to perhaps begin to open new parts of ourselves. So if, again, we've been on this journey since for about a year, where each new moon we've been exploring a particular feminine archetype, inspired by the astrology of that new moon. And each archetype has something to teach us. And this new moon in Gemini, we are calling in the archetypal fairies. The fairies. So when I talk about the fairies, yes, we're contemplating fairies in the external world, but we're very much looking for those fairy-like sort of qualities in our own being at this new moon. So, our theme of the month is learning from fairies. This is a theme. Learning from fairies, learning from fairies. I feel like I should say it more. Did you see I came outside for you today because it felt like the right place to be for this video? So learning from fairies is a theme that we explore in Wild Woman moon circles that are happening all around the globe now. And if there's not a circle near you, you can download the New Moon Companion, and we go through this process in either of those two options, where we explore this theme and we do a creative visualization, and we sort of have an experience, an internal experience with these archetypes. And we come out of the process ready to make intentions for our cycle ahead, so that we're really entering the moon cycle with a lot of intention and a lot of awareness and a lot of sensitivity to, our own creative superpowers. So we're being intentional about the way we're creating our lives. So let's talk a little bit specifically about the qualities of this new moon in Gemini and what that might wake up in us. So we are talking about the fairies, right? These winged, mythical, magical beings that have lived in our collective psyche and imaginations, and in the great myths and storytelling through the ages. That fairies have delighted our imagination. So there's a sense that we can tap into on this new moon is that sense of being tickled with delight and being open to the magic of this particular archetype. Fairies. How many of us have seen a fairy? Like, are they real? They have these sort of affinities with other light-winged beings, like butterflies, and fireflies are great examples, and hummingbirds are great examples, where you see this being in nature who flies and who seems to be like from another planet, so magical, so filled with light. And and let's talk a little bit about the tempo. This new moon is our first new moon of the zodiac year, which began on a new moon in Aries. We had a fire sign. New moon in Taurus, we had a really strong earth sign. And now here we are in our first air sign. So there's this sense of like, we're taking flight, we're letting go, we're tuning into the air element, that sense, that great sense of space. Because we can focus our attentions on things that we can see and touch and, like knock on, and we can focus our attention on the great, spaciousness around us. What is the air element? What does it have to teach us? When we start to tune into the air element, we start to get into sort of the world of the abstract, because it's the realm of communication, of thought, of ideas. If you're standing in front of me, there's a whole world inside of you. There's so many dimensions, just as there's a whole world inside of me. And we do our best as human beings to connect with one another across that space, through all forms of verbal and nonverbal communication, where we are trying, to reach out and meet one another and share with our lives and our experiences with one another, and to a certain degree, that's a very abstract process, Like, did they get it? Will anyone really ever truly understand the deep complexity of your being? We don't know. And that's, this is air stuff. This is air stuff. I hope I'm not getting too far out for you. But, these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about when we're thinking about the air sign. It's like, how are we communicating with the world? How are we listening to the world around us? What are being with the ideas and all forms of communication that are coming towards us and away from us at any given time. So we can learn a lot about a sign and the qualities that it might wake up in us from looking at the ruling planet of that sign. So the ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury. Let's think about Mercury for a second. Mercury takes 88 days, my friends, 88 days to orbit the sun. So Mercury's like this, whoosh, 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 just lapping us. And it's fun to note that, we're always hearing about Mercury retrograde, and what's actually happening physically is Mercury is stopping in its orbit. Okay, so it's going whoosh, stop, whoosh, stop. About 3 times a year, it stops like for a few weeks, and then everybody goes crazy. We won't talk about Mercury retrograde right now, but it teaches us a little bit about kind of like the shifty nature of Gemini. Gemini, forward, step, forward, stop, fast, tempo, up. Okay, so these are like, I'm trying to give you a sense of the kinds of qualities that you can tap into this new moon, and what that might bring, what that might bring up in you, that sense of lightness, that sense of curiosity, a sense of weighing one's options, going this way, going that way, being delighted, being curious. Mercury was said to be the messenger between the gods and the mortals. So if we think about that in symbolic sort of terms, you can think about it like Mercury is the messenger between, our higher consciousness and our human minds. Gemini is fierce in their intellect, fierce in their curiosity. You'll never find a better lyricists than some of the great lyricists of our times that are Geminis. They're incredibly good at doing that thing of communicating, what's happening in their inner space, and trying to give it expression. So what we are exploring at the Wild Woman Project this new moon and throughout the cycle is really waking up to what is being communicated around us, and we're with an emphasis on the natural world, an emphasis on walking through nature and really listening, not being in our own sort of like human bubble where we don't notice the sounds and the qualities and the feelings and the things that are being communicating. In so many ways, the natural world is constantly communicating to us, constantly has something to say, constantly has something to teach us if we have the ears and the heart to listen. So that's what we're doing. That's why we're talking about learning from the fairies, is an attempt in these last days of spring to embody these qualities. I'll leave you with one last thing to contemplate this new moon. During Gemini season, when the sun is in the sign of Gemini for about a month, from late May until the beginning of a Cancer season in late June, yes, late June, every day, every single day, there's more light in the day, more light. Every single day it builds up and it builds up and it builds up to the first day of Cancer, the summer solstice, like the lightest point of the whole year, the longest light, the longest day of light that we have in the whole year. And that's the beginning of Cancer, and then from that point, about June 20th until the winter solstice in December, it's less and less and less light each day. So in some sense, in this new moon, focusing on these qualities, Gemini, we are honoring the light. We are honoring the light and the celebration and the building of light. There's no dip. There's no, it's going to be more light this day and then darker the next day. No, light and then more light and then more light until it peaks right after Gemini season. I think there's something great to learn about. So as you're exploring, if you're doing it in Wild Woman moon circles, there are links below this video to all of the things that I'm talking about. If you're doing it in this exploration in Wild Woman moon circles, if you're doing it through, downloading the New Moon Companion, which is a solo virtual retreat, or if you're simply sitting with yourself in these concepts, this new moon, you might meditate on light, the lightness of being. What is it to have that sense of lightness, like the fairies, like the mythic fairies? And what is it to learn from those qualities? So I hope that you have an amazing new moon time. carve out some space for whatever your new moon ritual is for you. And we will continue throughout the cycle in Wild Woman Weekly-ish, and then on our full moon monthly howl, which is like a virtual gathering that you're all invited to, we will continue to explore this theme and continue to wake up this magic in our life and this awakeness and this listening and this learning and this curiosity. It's going to be a really fun cycle. So let's play this month, this moon cycle. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk soon at thewildwomanproject.com.